Hello and welcome to today's webinar on effective communication data management with Nuforma Project Center. In this webinar, we'll be taking you through the steps on what it takes to create a truly remote workforce. And by the end of it, we hope that you can gain some insights and implement some of the steps to successfully change the way your company approaches remote working and maximize your employees' productivity. And now we felt that it was appropriate to present this webinar given the current situation, but also feel that it will be valuable for the future as remote working becomes more common. So before we begin, I'd like to just quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Marvi Murphy. I am a customer success manager in APAC based out of Sydney, Australia. I've been with Nuforma for a little over four years, and I come from a technical background, having been in the IT industry for 15 plus years. And counting, and I initially started with Nuforma in the support organization, and then in the last couple of years, I've moved on into the customer success manager role. So with me today is Mark Rollins, and I'll pass it over to him to introduce himself.
Thank you, Marvi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am Mark Rollins. I'm a customer success manager based in Singapore. Before joining Nuforma, I practiced architecture at firms including SOM, Gensler, and HOK. It was while I was at HOK where I used and helped to implement Nuforma Project Center, which I'll show you a bit about today. After HOK, I joined Nuforma to help other firms implement Nuforma's specialized and very effective project information management system called Nuforma Project Center. And for the last 8 years, I've been doing this with architects, engineers, and contractors across the ASEAN and ANZ regions. So I'm really looking forward to showing you a few of the many ways that Nuforma will help your business effectively manage your project information. So let's continue with today's focus on one very important aspect of project information, your communication data. Marvi, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. All right, so to start things off, we're going to be covering the following items. Firstly, what is communication data? Now, when we think of communication data, we automatically think of it as emails, but it is a little bit more than that, as we'll see throughout this presentation. Next, we'll look at why is communication data crucial to my business and what the context is around that. And then finally, we'll look at how we're able to manage all that communication data with Nuforma and what the right context is for your business. So what exactly is communication data? Well, we think of it as every piece of data that is being used to transfer information from one person to another. So email being the most common method, and more often these days, various chat platforms are also more frequently used. Now, these are designed to quickly transfer a message or raise a question, and they can also contain files in the form of attachments. Both the text information as well as the attachments are important pieces of data that give you more knowledge and a better understanding of what it is that's being communicated, such as a project, for instance. File transfers, on the other hand, are the opposite of email and chat, in that the core function is to transfer files, especially those large files that are too big to be transferred via emails. Now, they can also transfer a message with the file as well. Collaboration platforms like Microsoft Teams are bringing all of this together, making it easier to communicate and share files in a distinct location without having to switch in and out of applications. So in essence, it serves as a data and communication hub. Now, is communication data project data? All of the communication data is not only a supporting tool for the creation of designs, models, drawings, and so on. It is in itself crucial data which is needed to drive project development, make important decisions, and get as many people involved in the conversation as needed, as well as to provide that accountability. So there's this massive amount of context around these communication channels and types, which is potentially as important to the project success as the transferred information itself. It is essentially the backbone of every information management process. And so yes, communication data is a crucial part of your overall project data. So now let's take a look at what project context is and why is this so important. Well, An email on its own, taken from the middle of a conversation without any context, is extremely hard, if not impossible, to correctly interpret. So here we have an example of an intransparent project email to illustrate how difficult it is to interpret a piece of information or data without its context. So under normal circumstances, we may remember the correct context as we ourselves are constantly working on certain projects. So we already have that context in our memory. Now, in this example, this email was sent from Mark to myself, and I will know what Mark is talking about because I know what project he's associated with. I may also remember the conversation that he's referring to here and what changes that are need to be made. But let's just say that this email came in a very busy period and I'm doing a number of things at the same time. I may have to look at certain things to try and remember what this is all about. I might have to try and recollect the conversation, look through notes, or perhaps any emails that were previously sent if that's available. So this can potentially cost me valuable time. Using the same example, it becomes extremely difficult if another person is trying to interpret the email with very little context. So let's say this email was passed on to Bob, and now he has to try and figure out what the email is about. He might even remember me telling him about these changes a week ago before I went on leave, but he doesn't recall the exact details. So now he needs to go back to Mark and find out what is this project that he's talking about? What are the changes that need to be made? What have they agreed on and what is the exact deadline and so on and so forth. And this can cost a considerable amount of time. So this is an example of when an email is standing completely on its own. So in other words, context is extremely important to interpret that information in order to make timely, correct decisions based on transparency and facts. Now, when you cannot recall the context around a certain piece of information or say that it's taking too long to gather information from the relevant people, you need to find another way to get the right understanding. Highlighting the relationship between project files is a powerful tool to understand how each piece of information fits into the bigger picture. So much like when one cannot remember what an email or an email attachment means, one has to go back and read through the complete email thread to understand what is actually meant. When this consecutive chain of information flow becomes easily accessible between all project files without having to look for it, interpretation of files becomes much quicker and simpler. This entire process creates a digital network which relates pieces of information and data without having to file or name them in a specific way. Now, the process of digital file sharing itself is rarely viewed as part of the overall project data. But let's take a closer look at what project data is. So when we talk about project data, most people think of it as files or the data that is contained within these files. But it is the information of who has sent what to whom, when, and whether it was downloaded and opened that is extremely important information for the overall progress of the project. So if I don't know what information my organization or what my colleagues have sent to third parties, then I am in the unknown. So here's some examples of third-party tools that are commonly used out there. Things like Swift, File Transfer, WeTransfer, Dropbox. There's a multitude of different tools that are out there. Now, using third-party file sharing tools may be more problematic than it might sound at first, because quite often they're not directly linked to your document management systems. So it's separated from the internal information, and therefore they can't provide the same information stream around context, such as who sent what, when they sent it, and to whom. So this means that the one crucial aspect of data transfers, that is the data transfer data, is essentially lost or at least separated from the rest of the project data periphery. And it will become increasingly hard to track down the information that has been shared with third parties, especially with archived or large files. Also, without being able to prove what information was sent and whom it was sent to, increases the risk of litigation. Now, ideally, a system used to manage project data and information is all-encompassing, meaning that it centralizes all types of data and from all locations. So that way, there's only one single source of truth, one way to find, view, manage, and all your project data and files. This includes communication data such as emails, file transfers, drawings, submittals, and all affiliated project contexts. A project information management solution such as Nuforma Project Center is designed to serve as the center of all things project related. In contrast to most tools, Nuforma Project Center does not require project data to be migrated from one proprietary database or solution, which can take months and disrupt current workflows. Instead, it centralizes project data only virtually by indexing files on your server and connect into third-party tools such as Office 365, SharePoint, Revit, and so on. Implementations become easier and quicker, and files are not locked up by third-party software vendors. Additionally, it's important to automate the process of logging file movements and digital actions via audit trail functionality. Now, this reduces manual work and errors. That way, the project context is maintained with ease. Now, this brings us to the demonstration piece, which Mark will be running through. So Mark will be showing you how to bring all this project information together. He'll also show you how all this information is able to be located centrally, and then how to share those files and reconstruct the process. Next, he'll also show you how to find and correctly interpret the right context. And finally, how to automate your audit trail. So Mark, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Marvi. That's really great. You raise some important points about communication data. So going through those 5 points that you have, I'll do my best to highlight all 5 of those, and show how Nuforma is the most effective communication data management tool related to what you've just gone through with us. Let me share my screen. Okay, I think it's showing there. Let me collapse this. Give me just a moment while I prepare. All right, and I'm logged in now to my virtual office to demonstrate this to you all. Now, when you are in your office and you log in to your Windows, and you log in using your regular Windows login account, and that actually logs you into Nuforma automatically. So it's a really simple tool to use. And I'll go and open up Nuforma Project Center by clicking on it here, or maybe I have an icon on the desktop, and then that will open up Nuforma Project Center. And once I have Nuforma Project Center open, it becomes that central location for all of my communication data, but not just for my communication data, for all of my project information. So Nuforma coined the term project information management, and it is a comprehensive project information management tool. It gives us the ability to see the projects that we're working on. And if I go over to this All Projects tab, it will give me the ability then to see all of the active projects that are in Nuforma for the office or in any location if we have multiple locations, multiple offices as well. But typically, a user adds on the projects that they're working on, and that allows them to then select that project and view information about the project. They can see different types of items, open action items, open RFIs, things like that, to see the status of those items, not only for themselves, but for the entire project team. So if I'm a project manager and I not only want to look at mine, I can also come over and look at the rest of the team to see where we stand and to filter this information down to quickly see information about it. And I'm going to open up the project because in addition to the ability to filter information to see the overall status of my projects, and I can move from project to project to see that information, but I don't have any RFIs in those other projects, only this one. But when I open the project, and I'm just going to double click on it, which will do this action right here, open, then it will actually take me into the project. And it gives me this overview of my project that shows more minute details about the project. I can come in and see activities such as RFIs that I filter to, or any activity in the project that I want to filter down to. and see where I stand on those. So here are those 5 overdue RFIs. I've got one that's pending, so I'm expecting something coming in as well on an RFI or an approval, and it will show me that, and I can click to select it. Because we are talking about having all of your data for the project, not just communication data. It's the important communication data and more, because you'll see here that there's project files. So I can see a project file that I've worked on. I can see PDFs that the team is working on by just clicking on that, or DWGs, or all files if I want to drop that down and select all of them. And I can view transfers, where we stand on both incoming and outgoing file transfers that we're dealing with on this project. And it's showing me this information for all of my projects. And then over on the right, we've got different activities. Now I'm going to focus on a few of these activities. So since this is your first time in Nuforma, let me simplify the view a little bit. This is the overall view that we have for these dashboards. So let me just simplify that for a moment, like I do when I'm in training. So when I start teaching people how to use Nuforma, I don't usually go to the dashboards right away. I'll focus users on some of the fundamentals, and it really is the thing that makes Nuforma unique is how it brings all of the data together. And it's about project files, it's about project email, it's about file transfers, and even transfers that we do that aren't done electronically, because Info Exchange is where we do electronic file transfers in Nuforma. We use this Info Exchange activity, and it transfers those on your Info Exchange server. But we also manage all transfers that might be done as hard copies in the transmittals as well. And we manage other things as well that we'll take a look at. So for example, we have document control here to issue control and issue out the versions of drawings. And if I have time, I'll show you a little bit about that, but I would cover first things first. And we can get into construction contract administration, where we may be dealing with approvals, dealing with RFIs, issuing out instructions, or dealing with variations. Whatever we're doing, we can turn on and off activities that we are managing in the system as well. And I could issue out a response from an RFI or send an instruction along with issuing out drawings from document control, where it manages the issuance of different versions, revision management. And it would then allow me to issue that through the electronic transfers of Info Exchange that I'll show you, and even save a transmittal, or perhaps I'm just sending hard copies, it would record the transmittal for that. So this simple interface with these little icons give us a pretty powerful way to manage our project information centrally. And I'm gonna go now into this project files activity. There's a shortcut up here on the ribbon menu. I'll click on that. And this is something that you're familiar with. I mean, we all go into the root folder for our projects, but some projects have information in many different locations, in more than one location. And Nuforma allows you to add almost any data repository to your project in one place, so that it provides substantial context. And project managers especially really like this, because they can see all of the locations. Even some team members may not have access to some of it, but a project manager, for example, could see all of that context in one place. And it can be added in from any conventional file server or other data repositories such as SharePoint, ProjectWise, and other environments as well. And it does some pretty powerful things. So I could quickly come in, maybe I'm new on this project, and I can drop this down. And if I don't know where the drawings are, I could drop that down, and it will let me navigate through the folder structure to see where those files are. And I can see we've got some incoming transfers. In the ECAD folder, I've got these architectural drawings, and that helped me get to these architectural drawings really quick, even if I didn't know where that folder was, because I narrowed it down to that option through the dropdown. And there's a lot of capability to help you manage your project information. So for information, when we're doing communications, our communication data, for these project files, it may be linked. It may be that I've done something with this particular drawing, and it has been issued out, or there was an action item created for it. And I have various activities, and you can see inspection requests, markups, action items, and other activities. And you'll see in this project files these related items, and that right away starts to give us context. And I can go down below, choose related items, and that full history is available to me. Now, the staff, as they're delivering on the project, don't have to record this. It just occurs and is one of a myriad of ways that we can view project information. And I could come in, and if I needed to send these files, I could select the files and simply transfer them right here. Or I could share the folder. I could select a folder, and I could go to the task menu and say Info Exchange, create a shared folder. And it integrates what I'm doing all in this console where Nuforma is tracking that. I'll go back to Project Home, click on this little house icon. We were looking at the project files. Now I want to go over and take a look now and show you that there's also an icon for project email, because that's another important aspect of our communications. So Marvi was talking about context for emails. All of the project emails are typically filed in Nuforma. Your team has an easy integration to file emails directly into Nuforma. They simply select an email, and we provide an integration for Outlook where you can quick file an email. You can select it, choose the project, and it will quickly file one or more emails that I've selected. Or I can drag it over here on the left. We have what's called Nuforma items to file folders. And for each project, those are automatically created as well. So you have quick file where the projects are created automatically, and you have items to file folders where you can drag files. So if I wanted to file this email, I can drag it to the project and it will just file automatically in the background. Both options exist, and it provides a streamlined workflow for filing emails. Now, you may not have noted, once I filed that email, I've set my settings so that it moves it into the deleted items. That's usually what I advise new users of Nuforma. The project managers think that's a great way once they're using Nuforma, because it saves them time and effort. It's now not cluttering up their inbox. If they want to move it somewhere else, they can, but instead they can just empty and be done with it because it's saved in Nuforma in the project email activity, and I can quickly access that information. Now, project managers are typically spending a lot of time managing subfolders for the emails, but Nuforma simplifies the process. You simply file it and you can quickly find the email. If I was looking for the emails from Bob, the contractor, or the company name, I put that in and it will narrow down. I've got 35 from Bob in this project. And I can narrow that down. If I was looking for something to do with the agreement, I could narrow it down and quickly find the agreement discussions we had had. Now, I'll clear that filter over here on the right. Now, perhaps I had a conversation about something and I want to go through and find an email that had a conversation. And you know those emails that have the REs. If there are conversations, when you select those, you would see additional ones just by saying view the conversation. And I might have some filtered as well, but it quickly narrows that down, and you can even further edit that in the filter if need be. So it gives us a fast way of viewing that. Now, with that email, if I needed to do something with it, I can double click on it because of the integration with Outlook, and I can reply to it or forward to it. So even though it's been filed into the project and I have a copy of the email centrally located, not locked away in someone's Outlook, but centrally located, and even if everyone saves that same email, there's only one copy over here in Nuforma. It gives us a way to quickly find that information because it is central, and makes the management of it so much easier for the team because now they can quickly find those things. Now, finding information, I showed you using filters, but I can confidently say unequivocally that Nuforma provides an unparalleled capability to find project information. You might be able to search for part of a term when you are, say, in your Outlook and you put in part of it, it will come up. But Nuforma, one of the great things, it is the most powerful capability for search. So filtering is great, but I'm going to show you now, in addition to that filtering that I just showed you, you can search for any of your project information, project files, project email, the file transfers that I haven't shown you yet, or any activity, the document control, issued drawings, the instructions or RFIs or approvals, something that was in a contract. If it's in Nuforma, it's all accessible to you through search. Now, I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Let me open up File Explorer. Now, without Nuforma, what your team typically does when they're looking for stuff and they don't know where it is, they go into the project and they open up one of their projects where they're looking for something, and then they'll search through the folders. They'll go through manually searching, or perhaps they'll do what's common and they'll do a search of a folder to look for something. I'm looking for a specification, for example. There's an issue that's come up and I need to find those documents, and I put in a term for that, so concrete. And it goes through in File Explorer and does a search. Now in Nuforma, in the upper right, it's the same thing. We can also search, just like in File Explorer, except that it will give me more complete information. It's not only going to look in the project files, it's going to look in all my project emails and in the database for anything that we've issued as part of our project. And it's the same thing, just put your search term, no matter where you are in Nuforma, it's always up here in the upper right, and just put in that term. And I'll put in concrete. I'm looking for that concrete spec, and all I have to do is hit enter. It's the default to search. The default will search the current project that I'm in. And I could search just project email or all of my projects. It gives us a lot of flexibility. So just put in the term and hit enter, or terms. You could put in multiple terms. So I could put 2 terms. I could put an exact phrase in quotations and it would search that. And you'll notice down at the bottom, it's compiling that because Marvi used a term, she said indexing. What Nuforma does is all of that project information is indexed by Nuforma so that the words are already pre-searched. All Nuforma has to do is compile the results. And now I have 1,100 plus results. Over in File Explorer, I had a bit less than 10. And you'll notice it's just in the folder name, file name, those types of things, okay? But in Nuforma, I've got 1,100 results, and it's not just in file names. It might be in the name of the file, but it's also within the file. So typically what you'll do, you'll know something about it. 1,100 is a lot of files, and that's usually daunting at first, but what you learn quickly is with Nuforma, you just filter it and you choose the file type that you're looking for, DWG. In my case, I'm looking for that DWG file. I might know something about the date or the location, or in my case, I know that I'm looking for a first floor plan. I can select that, and then I've narrowed it down to 6. And I can quickly go through that. I'll either get a thumbnail or I'll get a full page preview, depending on the file type. And you'll notice, just like in project files, it gives us links to things. So this file related to these activities, and I can see those down below, other things that have been done with that. So if I knew that we did a lot of work with it, I'm like, that's the file I'm after. I remember we had to send out a question regarding that. There was an action item related to that. So this is the one, perfect. And now I might want to view that, and I don't have the native program installed, AutoCAD, but I can still open it. I can open it up in Nuforma Viewer, which is a part of Nuforma. You'll notice this icon down at the bottom. Nuforma Viewer is a very powerful tool that you can do markups. You can do overlays to view changes within drawings. It does a lot of different functions. The markups teams like to do collaborative markups in them. But one of the things that it does when you search for project information, which is what we're doing at the moment, is it will show me where the information is. It has this little explorer, and it gives the term that I searched and takes me right to the term within the document. And I can go line by line, page by page in a contract, in a specification, in a drawing, and it will show me one by one where it found the term that I was searching for. Okay, term or terms. So that's the Newforma viewer. It is an integral part of Newforma Project Center and lets you do a lot of things to help manage your projects. But back to the basics of being able to find and correctly interpret the right context for stuff. So when we have something like a file that we're searching for, we can quickly search for it and find the information. And if there was a file transfer, I could see that information within Newforma Project Center and quickly see whether it was an action item, a transfer, an issuance of a document set, and more. And then I could go and view the information for those items. Now, I'm going to go back to Project Home. We've looked at two very important aspects of project information, the project files, the project email. I showed you how your team can quickly file emails so that they're indexed and cut down on their email management time. For project managers especially, they spend 15 to 20% of their time either searching for or recreating existing project information. And if I haven't said it, I've had project managers thank me again and again for Newforma's project email capability, not to mention search. So that alone is an extraordinary improvement for managing your communication data. But Marvi spoke about how file transfers are also a critical, well, she didn't quite put it this way, but I think of it as critical historical data components. I can't quite remember what she said specifically, but this important part of your data, the communication data. And so I know that it's true. Everything that we send out, I'm going to open up Info Exchange here, everything that we receive, all of the file transfers that we do. But one thing that she did say is that being able to reconstruct the process when you share files, being able to see what has occurred can be broken and not together. Now, Newforma keeps all of your project information in one place. That's why it's a project information management system, but it also then keeps the context for what we're doing with the transfer. So when I drop this down, you'll see I've got both the incoming and the outgoing file transfers all in one place. I'm going to go over to outgoing. So I've got a question about something that one of the team members sent before lunch. I can come in and select that file transfer to see what we sent, if it was sent, who sent it, when. And what Newforma is doing is, instead of having that data, lost because it's spread across many places, with Newforma keeping it in one place, and with Newforma helping to automate and centralize the data, you're able to find what you're looking for. So here, for example, that transfer that was done by Adam, I can select it and see was created by Adam, what time, 1:45 today, that it was uploaded to the transfer server and finished uploading at 1:46, and that it was downloaded by the contractor Bob at 1:47. Wouldn't usually occur that quick, but for a demonstration it might. And it's all in one place. Now that's just for the basic details. If we go over to the remarks, we can see the email. So instead of having that email being separated out, it's giving us that context. Now that's what Marvi was speaking about when she said how systems break up and in many cases lose or simply don't store important parts of the critical historical data for these file transfers, but Newforma does. It's got the changelog, it's got the remarks, which is the email notification. It's got the transferred files. So these are the files that were sent out. It's a record copy of it, and it creates a transmittal, and that's logged here over in the related items. And if this is related to another activity, issuing out through document control, related to an instruction, those items would also show. So that context, even though the user might not realize it, is all saved all at once when we do it. It's an automated process for your users. So I want to point out Nuforma automates and centralizes all of the important data components for every file transfer, and that provides efficiency and productivity on the team. So I'm gonna show you how to automate this process that can take your team members anywhere between 15 to 45 minutes each time they go to send one of these items. Now in Nuforma, it will take them, once they're familiar with what I'm about to show you, it will take them typically less than 2 minutes. And they do that by simply opening up Nuforma, going to Info Exchange or another activity where they want to send from, and just saying create a file transfer. And it will give the users a user interface that's much like creating an email. It's as simple as that. It doesn't take any complex knowledge. In fact, Nuforma even gives hints about what's required. You can see this is required. I've got to put in who it's to. So I can type in an email address or a name. So Bob, he's the contractor. He's already on the project team. I can put him in just by typing his name. I'll CC myself. And the subject is required, so I'll put in that subject. And it's required so that you always have that information. You can have it customized for what purposes it's for. I'm sending that over to Bob for information. And I'm sending it out via Info Exchange. That's for your electronic transfers, but you can send it through any method. You can send it through another common data environment, another data repository for someone else that you have the login for. You can send hard copies via hand or via a courier. And Nuforma, irrespective of the method, tracks all of those incoming and outgoing transfers. That's the idea, that all of the project information is retrievable for the team to make things more efficient. Now at the transfer now, down in remarks, I'll fill that in. That's my email. And you can just put in, if you've got your signature that you've added, put that in, or have it automated as part of your template for the office where you don't even have to put it here. And you fill that in, and that will be the email. And then this second tab is the transmittal, but you don't have to fill that in because when you add your files, it's going to fill that in for you. So you add files, and you can add the files from any location on your computer. It opens up the project context for you. So that's kind of nice. There's no limit to the number of files. So you don't have to separate it out via email. And you just simply select them, add them in, and it fills in that transmittal for you. If this was related to something else, these tabs might fill in. If I created this related to an email or needed to relate it, I could manually, or if I needed or was creating it from some other item, but usually just these two remarks for the email and associated files, and it fills in the transmittal. If I'm doing a hard copy, like I'm sending out and I need to send out multiple copies, I could change this manually or edit it in spreadsheets. So it's a true efficiency tool, simple to use. And once everyone's ready and they've added in that basic 3 requirements, name, subject, and files, they don't even have to put the email in if they don't want, then they just send. Now note, I said it automates the steps. It's automating zipping the files. It's automating, so it'll zip these in a zip file automatically. It will automatically save the outgoing folder, just like it saves incoming file transfers. And all you have to do is say create and transfer, and it's going to upload that to your Info Exchange transfer server, and it manages that for you automatically as well. It will stay up there on the default setting for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever the default is, but you could change that if you needed to. And that's it. So, a user will typically do that in 1 to 2 minutes once they're familiar with it. And it's automating about 6 different steps. It's logging it. It is then taking the files and zipping them. It's saving the outgoing folder. It's uploading it to the transfer server. It is creating this transmittal and including that with the contents in the zip folder. And then it's sending the email notification as well. All of these steps that people usually do separately and it's automated all of those. And it does this for outgoing transfers. It does it when we're doing issuances from document control. It does it for all different methods, but of course the most basic one we're all familiar with are basic outgoing transfers with a cover page, a transmittal, and that's the one that we just did. And we can see the history then. We select it, we can see it's been created, it's been uploaded. We don't know yet if it's been downloaded, but we know that the email is here. We know what files were sent without question. There's the cover page for what was sent. And if there's other items related to it, they're all here. And it does that consistently for various types, both incoming and outgoing. And there's nothing better for managing your projects than that. And for the recipients, it's really quite simple. The recipients can go into their email. When they check their mail, they'll log in, and if they've received one of those transfers from you, they'll get it. There's the email, and they can just download the files by clicking on the link to download those files. Like any good secure file transfer, it will use a default web browser that the user uses and automatically save those files for them. And then they can go, once it's finished downloading, and view those. And it's just a zip file that contains the contents along with that transmittal, so that they have that automatically generated transmittal. The staff didn't need to spend time to do all that, so that they've got a record of what you sent as well. So it's good record keeping for everyone on the project, and we'll close that. Okay, and I'll go back to Newforma then, and in Newforma I can see when I refresh on this that in fact Bob has downloaded it. So it's really giving me that clear history. I know what we told him, I know what he's downloaded, and the project continues. You never know where that question is going to come from. And Newforma, it's by auditing this, you know, our name, Newforma Project Center, we have that name for good reason, because Newforma is the center of all things project related. I showed you through just a few examples, project files, project email, and file transfers for your communication data. When you extend that and use document control, when you issue out submittals or RFI responses or instructions and use document control, it's tying all of this together. Now, document control, let me give you one more example, just real quick. With document control, this activity, when we train your staff on that, once they're familiar with transfers, they issue out and transfer the drawings to keep track of what was issued when and what revision number. And it keeps all of this issue history in one place. And if I go and create that document register report, the drawing transmittal, you'll see that that is automating, again, yet another function for your team where they're not having to manage this. As part of a central system, it tracks which drawings were sent with which revision number, when, to whom, and for what purpose. And rather than having someone spend hours managing this type of information on a regular basis, it just automates it as part of that workflow with the electronic transfers. And we just add that in so that all of our documents are in here and can even be linked directly from something like Revit, where we have an add-in that allows us to synchronize that data from our models for consistency. And that document control, as I mentioned, that can connect so that when we issue out contract management items, such as approvals or RFIs, that it ties those together. And again, is searchable and clearly understandable for the context. Now, there's a lot more things that Newforma does. I've shown you, today, for example, also the integration with Outlook. And there's integration. Some of you may be familiar with the InfoExchange website, where you can log in if you're given a login on the web to see project information as well and submit things or send files. This is a part of the system to keep teams working effectively together and streamlining communications where all of the data is in one place. That's our well-established, long-utilized InfoExchange project websites that are automatically created for each of your projects in your system. As we move forward, we're moving forward technologically to provide you with hybridized tools where you can log in on the cloud, a mobile app, or your Newforma Project Center in the office and see the same details for projects. So for example, I can see the project files even out of the office in the cloud on a web browser such as this one, or by using a mobile app to see the same information, such as my project files, my action items that I may want to manage or create for the team, and for things like email management, where I can even file those emails outside of the office. Newforma really is a very feature-rich tool. There's a lot of capability to it. It really helps your teams better manage your project information, but unfortunately, I don't have time to demonstrate everything. I need to make sure that I've focused on those points for communication data management. And Marvi, how's that? Did I miss any of those points about communication data management?
No, I think you pretty much covered all we needed to cover in this session, Mark. As Mark was saying, there's a lot of functionality, a lot of features to Newforma, more than what this would allow. But this was essentially to talk about effective communication data management with Newforma Project Center, and Mark, I believe Mark demonstrated that quite well. So thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar today. We hope you've been able to gain some valuable information and get some ideas on how to be able to effectively manage your communication data. Now, if you do have any questions, particularly around how Newforma can help your organization around the management of your project information, feel free to reach out to Mark or myself in our respective email addresses as shown in the screen there. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marvi. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark.